Jeremy J's at 337. Day 337 of reading. Today, reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. We're currently on page 706. 6-7. Sense of power that Harry had felt after Dumbledore had stunned young Crouch. Harry is as sane as you or I. The scar upon his forehead has not addled his brains. I believe it hurts him when Lord Voldemort is close by or feeling particularly murderous. Fudge had taken half a step back from Dumbledore, but he looked no less stubborn. You'll forgive me, Dumbledore, but I've never heard of a cursed scar acting as an alarm before. Look, I saw Voldemort come back, Harry shouted. He tried to get out of bed again, but Mrs. Weasley forced him back. I saw the Death Eaters. I can give you their names. Lucius Malfoy. Snape made a sudden movement, but as Harry looked at him, Snape's eyes flew back to Fudge. Malfoy was cleared, said Fudge, visibly affronted. A very old family. Donations to excellent causes. McNair, Harry continued, also cleared, now working for the Ministry. Avery Knott Crabbe Goyle. You are merely repeating the names of those who were acquitted of being Death Eaters 13 years ago, said Fudge angrily. You could have found those names in old reports of the trials. For heaven's sake, Dumbledore, the boy was full of some crackpot story at the end of last year, too. His tales are getting taller, and you're still swallowing them. The boy can talk to snakes, Dumbledore, and you still think he's trustworthy? You fool! Professor McGonagall cried. Cedric Diggory, Mr. Crouch, these deaths were not random work of a lunatic. I see no evidence to the contrary, shouted Fudge, now matching her anger, his face purpling. It seems to me that you are all determined to start a panic that will destabilize everything we have worked for these last 13 years. Harry couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had always thought of Fudge as a kindly figure, a little blustering, a little pompous, but essentially good-natured. But now a short, angry wizard stood before him, refusing point-blank to accept the prospect of disruption in his comfortable and ordered world, to believe that Voldemort could have risen. Voldemort has returned, Dumbledore repeated. If you accept that fact straight away, Fudge, and take the necessary measures, we may still be able to save the situation. The first and most essential step is to remove Azkaban from the control of the Dementors. Preposterous, shouted Fudge again. Remove the Dementors? I'd be kicked out of the office for suggesting it. Half of us only feel safe in our beds at night because we know the Dementors are standing a guard at Azkaban. The rest of us sleep less soundly in our beds, Cornelius, knowing that you have put Lord Voldemort's most dangerous supporters in care of creatures who will join him the instant he asks them, said Dumbledore. They will not remain loyal to you, Fudge. Voldemort can offer them much more scope for their powers and their pleasures than you can. With the Dementors behind him and his old supporters returned to him, you will be hard-pressed to stop him regaining the sort of power he had 13 years ago. Fudge was opening and closing his mouth as though no words could express his outrage. The second step you must take, and at once, Dumbledore pressed on, is to send envoys to the Giants. Envoys to the Giants? Fudge shrieked, finding his tongue again. What madness is this? Extend them the hand of friendship. Now, before it's too late, said Dumbledore, or Voldemort will persuade them, as he did before, that he alone among wizards will give them their rights and their freedom. You cannot be serious, Fudge gasped, shaking his head and retreating further from Dumbledore. If the magical community got wind that I had approached the Giants, people hate them, Dumbledore. End of my career. You are blinded, said Dumbledore, his voice rising now, the aura of a power around him palpable, his eyes blazing once more. By the love of the office you hold, Cornelius, you place too much importance, and you always have done, on the so-called purity of blood. You fail to recognize that it does not matter what someone is born, but what they grow to be. Your Dementor has just destroyed the last remaining member of a pure blood family as old as any. And see what that man chose to make of his life. I tell you now, take the steps I suggested, or you will be remembered, in the office or out, as one of the bravest and greatest minister. If I tell you now, take the steps I have suggested, and you will be remembered in office or out, as one of the bravest and greatest minister of magic we have ever known. Fail to act, and history will remember you as the man who stepped aside and allowed Voldemort a second chance to destroy the world we have tried to rebuild. Insane, whispered Fudge, still backing away. Mad. And then there was silence. Madame Pomfrey was standing frozen at the foot of Harry's bed, her hand over her mouth. Mrs. Weasley was still standing over Harry, her hand on his shoulder to prevent him from rising. Bill, Ron, and Hermione were staring at Fudge. If your determination to shut your eyes will carry you as far as this, Cornelius, said Dumbledore, we have reached a parting of the ways. You must act as you see fit, and I shall act as I see fit. Dumbledore's voice carried no hint of a threat. It sounded like a mere statement, but Fudge bristled as though Dumbledore was advancing upon him with a wand. Now see here, Dumbledore, he said, waving a threatening finger. I've given you free rein, always. I had a lot of respect for you. I might not have agreed with some of your decisions, but I've kept quiet. There aren't many who have let you hire werewolves or keep Hagrid, or decide what to teach your students without reference to the ministry. But if you're going to work against me, the only one I'm against whom I intend to work, said Dumbledore, is Lord Voldemort. If you are against him, then we remain, Cornelius, on the same side. It seemed Fudge could think of no answer to this. He rocked backward and forward on his small feet for a moment and spun his bowler hat in his hands. Finally, he said, with a hint of plea in his voice, he can't be back, Dumbledore. He just can't be. Snape strode up, past Dumbledore, pulling up the left sleeve of his robes as he went. He stuck out his forearm and showed it to Fudge, who recoiled. There, said Snape, harshly. There, the dark mark. It's not as clear as it was an hour or so ago. Oh, where it burned black, but you can still see it. Every Death Eater had the sign burned into him by the Dark Lord. It was a means of distinguishing one another, and his means of summoning us to him. When he touched the mark of any Death Eater, we were to disapparate and apparate instantly too at his side. The mark has been growing clearer all the year. Karkaroff's too. Why do you think Karkaroff fled tonight? We both felt the mark burn. We both knew he had returned. Karkaroff's fear of the Dark Lord's vengeance. He had betrayed too many of his fellow Death Eaters to be sure of a welcome back into the fold. Fudge stepped back from Snape too. He was shaking his head. He did not seem to have taken in a word Snape had said. He stared, apparently repelled by the ugly mark on Snape's arm, then looked at Dumbledore and whispered, I don't know what you and your staff are playing at, Dumbledore, but I have heard enough. I have no more to add. I will be with you tomorrow, Dumbledore, to discuss the runnings of the school. I must return to the ministry. He had almost reached the door when he paused. He turned around, strode back to the dormitory, and stopped at Harry's bed. Your winnings, he said shortly, taking a large bag of gold out of his pocket and dropping it onto Harry's bedside table. 1,000 galleons. But there should have been a presentation ceremony, but under the circumstances, he crammed his bowler hat onto his head and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The moment he had disappeared, Dumbledore turned to look at the group around Harry's bed. There is work to be done, he said. Molly, am I right to think that I can count on you and Arthur? Of course you can, said Mrs. Weasley. She was white to the lips, but she looked resolute. We know what Fudge is. It's Arthur's fondness for muggles that has held him back at the ministry these years. Fudge thinks he lacks proper wizarding pride. Then I need to send a message to Arthur, said Dumbledore. All those who we can persuade of the truth must be notified immediately.